Well, let's talk now to Dr. Elisabeth Kendall, who's Senior Research Fellow in Arabic at Pembroke College at the University of Oxford. Thanks very much for being with us. What would be the significance if and when Islamic State are driven out altogether from Mosul? What would be the significance of that, do you think?
Well, I think the loss of territory for Islamic State is hugely significant. After all, the idea of a centralised caliphate, a block of land which could become an Islamic utopia for Muslims globally, was absolutely central to its propaganda and to its appeal. So losing that is quite a big deal, but I don't think it's a fatal blow. After all, you can kill people, but you can't kill ideas. And the idea of a caliphate will remain. I think it will be fairly easy for Islamic State to explain away the loss of territory. The Prophet Muhammad himself, during his lifetime, suffered many setbacks. But still, it doesn't look good. If you're losing territory and losing battles, it doesn't look like God's on your side. So I think that it will be a dramatic blow, and particularly for Muslims who were sympathetic and living in the West. You might want to uproot your family to move to an Islamic utopia when it's running well, when it's a functioning state, when it has a taxation system and a welfare state. But when it becomes an out-and-out war zone, that appeal is certainly lost.
And that block of land that they were trying to create was linking Iraq and what territory they have in Syria as well. But Mosul is a big city, a key city, and if they are driven out of that, they'll just have a few bits of land dotted around the place, won't they?
Well, that's correct. But don't forget, you don't need an army of mujahideen centrally located in order to wreak havoc. Actually, all you need are a few cells with willing suicide bombers, and you can still wreak havoc. But you raise an important point, because one of the questions we must now consider is, what are the knock-on effects? What happens next? If you squeeze a group like Islamic State in Mosul, or in Iraq generally, or in Syria generally, you might well start to see it crop up elsewhere in the Middle East. There are plenty of failed or fragile states dotted around the Middle East, Sudan, Somalia, Libya, Yemen, where cells of Islamic State already exist. And so fleeing Islamic State fighters could well hook up with such cells. And I think top of my list of worries would be Yemen.
Yeah. And I suppose one of the worries about Islamic State was, the more territory they had, potentially that was bringing them wealth, oil wealth, revenue that they could use for terrorism and whatever else they wanted to use it for. And if they're being denied that, the people opposing them will welcome that. Well,
that's true. But I think they can still keep the Islamic State project alive nonetheless. And we're already starting to see Islamic State manage expectations. It switched its advice from saying, hey, come and move to the caliphate, it's a wonderful Islamic paradise, to actually saying, you know what, you don't have to move to the caliphate. You can still take part in our project from wherever you are. Just launch attacks in your own country.
So in some ways more dangerous. OK. Dr. Elisabeth Kendall, thank you very much indeed for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Elisabeth Kendall there from Oxford University's Pembroke College.